Hi, I'm Ailia Zehra, and you're watching Dissent today. Recently, we saw a dramatic shift in US Pakistan relations. There is now cooperation between the two countries on multiple fronts. Field Marshal Asim Munir, Pakistan's army chief, has visited the US twice since June. He was first welcomed at the White House, where he met with President Trump, and he recently attended the CENTCOM commander's retirement ceremony in Florida. So there is a lot of hope surrounding this renewed partnership between the two countries, but at the same time, there is some skepticism as well. Joining me now to discuss all that is Shuja Nawaz, a distinguished fellow at the Atlantic Council's South Asia Center, which he founded many years ago. He's also the author of a book on US Pakistan relations called The Battle for Pakistan. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess I want to start by getting into the real reason why we are seeing this warmth in US-Pakistan relationship. In Pakistan, a lot of people tend to argue that it is because of Pakistan's diplomacy and it's the success of Pakistan's diplomacy. But how much of this sort of turnaround do you think is because of Pakistan's diplomatic efforts, and how much of it is just Trump being Trump and using Pakistan to sort of get back at India?
I think I should begin with a word of caution. There's a danger of being irrationally exuberant about this relationship. And this has happened in the past, and it seems to be happening again. The basics of the relationship, which is an unequal transactional relationship between a superpower and a country that has been using its geographic and strategic location as a form of rent-seeking mechanism. That has not changed dramatically. And I think that is the part that is in Pakistan's control and that Pakistan can and should change. And when that happens, then the relationship will be on much firmer footing and much more realistic, and it will survive administrations, change of administrations in Pakistan. I've maintained elsewhere that the basic relationship between the United States and Pakistan really doesn't change a lot from administration to administration. Now, what transpired this time was a smart move on the part of Pakistan in that uh, they understood the way President Trump behaves, and they played to his weaknesses, and that became their strength. So they hired uh, a lobbying firm that included his former personal bodyguard and someone who used to work for the Trump organization. So that gave them immediate access to the president. And that helped them get in the door. That was one. Secondly, they have maintained, and this is not new, this has been going on for years, a very powerful military to military relationship on counterterrorism in the region. And that means allowing the United States to use Pakistani airspace to operate and to have access to the neighboring countries as a listening post, and also perhaps even to target terrorists in Afghanistan in particular. That has been a very strong basis for this relationship. And the Army chief has been a key element in strengthening that relationship. It's not new. It's not something that he came up with or that Trump came up with, but that it worked. And the fact that Pakistan delivered one of the people that the US was looking for immediately attracted the attention of the President of the United States.
Right.
The other thing that is critical is that Pakistan surprised everyone, including perhaps itself, having prepared very well for a potential conflict with India, using not just its Chinese connections and support, but also, and this has not been acknowledged either by the Turks nor by Pakistan, their Turkish support, which has been going on since 2021 in terms of the production of TB2 drones. And then, from all accounts, and this is my analysis based on the information available, again, not confirmed by either Pakistan or Turkey, the use of the Coral system, which helped suppress the S-400. And that was very successful. And that attracted the attention of the United States. And President Trump loves winners. And he thought that Field Marshal Asim Munir was a winner. And that is why he broke all protocol and invited him for lunch at the White House.
Right. While this is being celebrated, this renewed partnership, there are also concerns, given what happened in the past with the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. People are saying that Pakistan should not go too far in maintaining this relationship. As you said, it should be transactional, and Pakistan should not, let its relationship with its regional partners be affected by this partnership. What do you think? And this is a relationship that's very sensitive, and it's seen several ups and downs, more downs than ups. But Pakistani officials tell us that this time around things are different, and they're very confident that they're treading carefully. They're not going to sort of put all their eggs in one basket and rely too much on the US. What do you think would be an indication that that is in fact the case and Pakistan is not relying too much on the US this time?
Well, I think it's very important that Pakistan very publicly maintain good relations with all its neighbors, uh, Afghanistan, China, Iran, and even open the doors to India. And maybe President Trump can be one way of achieving that regional stability and reducing the political uncertainty in the region. Uh, Pakistan can also play a very critical role in the US negotiations with Iran. And there are two aspects to it, which I think are worth remembering. One, President Trump has always felt that the Obama deal with Iran, the JCPOA as it's known, was not a good deal. And there are many good reasons why it wasn't a good deal. The biggest one being that it had a sunset clause after which Iran could do whatever it wanted in terms of enrichment. And Iran broke a number of the basic rules of that agreement, starting as early as 2003, when the IAEA issued a report that was very negative, and the United States didn't proceed to the Security Council with that. So there were mistakes made in the early period, and President Trump wants to fix those mistakes. But at the same time, he has another possibility of bringing Iran into the economic and political community of the region. So Iran can play a massive role in stabilizing and controlling Afghanistan and controlling terrorism and smuggling of drugs from Afghanistan. As it is, Western Afghanistan has been almost a fiefdom of Iran, with teachers and businessmen and fuel coming across the border. So Iran can play that role. Iran can also resolve its issues with the Arab states, and Saudi Arabia has already taken the lead. There have been exchange of visits, and Pakistan and Field Marshal Asim Munir personally, I think, has been playing a key role in all of this. If you remember, he was trained as a young officer in Tehran, so he has knowledge, personal knowledge of the country. He was also in Tehran on May 28th, just before the war broke out that involved Israeli and US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. And so I think President Trump probably relies to a large extent on him as a sounding board for some of the things that can and should be done. And my view is that that would by itself, not just the nuclear deal, but the broader resolution of issues and the removal of sanctions, which would free up Pakistan's economy, help India, help the Saudis, help Central Asia. All of that would be something that is worth applauding and maybe giving President Trump a Nobel Peace Prize for sure.
Right. One of the areas in which we are seeing cooperation between Pakistan and the US is counterterrorism. You recently had a counterterrorism dialogue between Pakistan and the US. The State Department designated BLA as foreign terrorist group. How significant do you think this partnership is when it comes to counterterrorism? Is there a potential to create something meaningful, something lasting? And Pakistan recently launched an operation in Bajor also, and Pakistan has conducted several military operations against terrorism in the past, but they did not actually translate into lasting peace. We have seen that in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, there has been a resurgence of the TTP. So, how significant do you think this partnership, when it comes to counterterrorism, is?
Well, first off, experience from all over the world indicates that insurgencies don't end with military action. They always end with political and economic actions. And that is the part that Pakistan has really not pursued effectively. If you look at the socioeconomic indicators of erstwhile Fatah and Balochistan and compare them with the rest of Pakistan, there's a huge gap. And there's no reason for this gap. It is simply neglect and allowing local feudal leadership to take advantage of access to state resources and basically be part of the elite capture, which has been well documented and often reported, as you know, by the UNDP. Something like 17.4 billion annually is taken by the elites of Pakistan. And they've broken it down by different groups and categories, including the military, about 1.5 billion. So Pakistan really needs to reshape the way it handles its internal asset controls and how it manages them. But coming back to the BLA, I think a very critical part of this designation means that Pakistan can now tap into the U.S. Treasury Department's ability to track financial flows that support the BLA. And once those are tracked, Pakistan can then make an international case against those countries, including India, that may be supporting the BLA through direct or indirect transfers. Because though all of that is being done through the international financial channels, and the Treasury can track those down. We haven't yet been given that evidence, and Pakistan can use that publicly and make a case. That's on the one side. But on the other side, engagement with the youth, who are the majority of the population of Balochistan and erstwhile Fatah, is very critical. Instead of trying to select maliks and chiefs and sardars with whom you can deal and giving them the authority to run the province for you, you really need to allow the youth a voice and release the political prisoners, which would be one way of winning their confidence. I think that is something that has not been tried, and it needs to be tried.
Right. Coming back to the field marshal, he's made headlines recently with some of his remarks that were, misconstrued in India as a nuclear threat when he spoke at the Pakistani community event in Florida. He said some things which were reported in India by the Indian media as, a nuclear threat. Even though he did not say that, it was, I think, misreported, but the nature of those remarks were still kind of intense, and it was like a loaded remark. He also recently said that Pakistan was a dumper truck and India was a shining Mercedes, which is a remark that was confirmed by the Interior Minister, Mohsen Naqvi. And he said that to a Saudi delegation that was visiting Pakistan, according to the Interior Minister. So, I mean, and if you remember, just before the Pahalgam incident, he had made a speech where he had sort of repeated the two nation theory, and a lot of people had seen that speech as problematic. Some even said that it was bigoted in nature, it was anti Hindu. So, I mean, for military officials, public speaking is not considered a very valuable skill. They're not exactly trained in that aspect. But still, maybe the field marshal should get a speechwriter for these occasions. What do you think?
Well, who am I to advise him on what he should do? Except that from all accounts, he has not been publicly speaking much. Most of the remarks that are attributed to him have been either leaks or concocted stories like in the Indian media. I think that is something to keep in mind. Um, it doesn't behove when there is a civilian government, it doesn't behove the military chief to be making political statements, particularly vis-a-vis neighboring states. But as a military chief, obviously, he doesn't want to diminish the possibility of a conflict with India, which has happened so many times, even in recent memory. And I think the message that he wants to send and that he should send is a message that India has already received, which is that Pakistan has the ability to defend itself and that it will not simply be uh, a defense on the back foot, but it will be an offensive defense. So I think that's a message that the Indians already know. There's a lot of talk about what damage did Pakistan do, what damage did India do, and I've maintained publicly in many of my statements that the Indians knew exactly what damage Pakistan has caused. And Pakistan knew exactly what damage the Indians had caused. This was just for domestic audiences that the governments were ranting and raving about, what had happened or what had not happened. My point is that the Field Marshal is not known for public speaking. He hasn't been doing a lot of public speaking. Most of his speeches have been to closed audiences. And so there's been a problem when leaks have occurred or where stories have been concocted, as was the case with the Indian media about the nuclear threat. I don't think it's a question of what he says or how he says it. It's just that this is the reality of today's world. Leaks will happen. As far as India is concerned, they know exactly what damage Pakistan did during this short conflict. And Pakistan also knows what damage India did. So both countries are basically trying to sell something to their domestic audiences for political purposes. I think that's a reality of politics today. The thing really is that military leadership should not really be speaking too much on political issues because it weakens the political structure. And as it is, the general perception is that there is a weak political government acting as a front for military rule in Pakistan. And when you have this kind of a hybrid situation, it creates confusion among the people of the country. It also creates confusion among your overseas partners and your neighbors. And Pakistan badly needs to create political stability and consistency in terms of economic policy, investment opportunities, and so on. And here I'd like to go back to the US relationship. Remember that the basic US view of Pakistan has not dramatically changed between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. I'll give you two instances. There is the annual investment report on countries. And the latest report on Pakistan's investment climate was extremely critical. It said Pakistan's business and investment climate poses considerable challenges according to investors. Complex and inconsistent regulations, inadequate protection of intellectual property rights, and ever-changing taxation policies are some of the many business climate challenges cited by investors. Security concerns marked by internal and regional conflicts also undermine investors' confidence in protection and profitability of their investments. So that has not changed. And I went and looked back at the previous year's report, which looked back at 23, and it said more or less the same. While Pakistan has a nominally open foreign direct investment regime, it is a challenging environment for investors. The government implemented additional duties, et cetera, and it then lists all the things that the government has done to make investment difficult in Pakistan.
Right.
Now, The SRFC is supposed to make that simpler, but there's confusion between its role and that of the Board of Investment. People don't know where to go and so on. And my other basic point on that is that Pakistan has to change its domestic investment environment. And once domestic business leaders start investing in Pakistan in a big way, it gives a signal to foreign investors to come in. And last year, when the US issued this report for last year, uh, they also mentioned the Transparency International's corruption index,
Yeah.
in which Pakistan was 133 out of 180 countries.
Right.
And they also said that the total stock of FDI in Pakistan was $127 million only. So there's a lot to make up for. I think that's one. The other is that the United States is maintaining a very sharp eye on Pakistan's nuclear capacity as well as its ability to deliver nuclear weapons. And if you recall, in January this year, just before the regime change occurred in Washington, John Feiner, the deputy NSA, made a statement in which, uh, among other things, he accused Pakistan of developing these long range weapons. And they announced new sanctions on 4 Pakistani entities that were developing those systems. Interestingly, the Trump administration has not removed those sanctions. Neither has it changed its tune on those. So my point is that the United States will maintain all of this in its back pocket to use as leverage on Pakistan if there's a need to put pressure on Pakistan to do things that Pakistanis may not be prepared to do on their own. And the best defense for Pakistan is a strong economy and a very stable polity. And the best thing that the military can do is to get out of the economy and allow it to flourish, because it can and will flourish, as has been shown when you didn't have restrictions. You had young software engineers and developers creating something out of nothing, and billions of dollars of exports have occurred. So that is the future for Pakistan, not relying on the largesse of Uncle Sam or any other uncle.
These are issues that are very important and they're often overlooked these days when people analyze US Pakistan relations. And the army chief said recently that Pakistan will become a developed nation in the next 5 to 10 years. If we are to get there, all these concerns that you have raised definitely need to be addressed sooner rather than later. So I know this conversation is about US Pakistan relations, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you at least one question about Pakistan's domestic politics. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan is in prison right now, and he's somebody who enjoyed very good relations with the military at one point. You have covered the military so closely. You've done extensive research on the Pakistan military's inner workings. Do you think that there's a possibility that Imran Khan might get back in the military's good graces, or has he reached the point of no return, and things will never be the same between him and the military?
I'm not into political predictions. I look at different scenarios. And the only scenario under which I can see the return of Imran Khan is if there is a failure of the current political regime, and the kind of fake marriage between the People's Party and the PMLN. I think the military should keep in mind that by supporting an anachronistic dynastic political system, it is not allowing Pakistan to go into the future with great confidence. It is ignoring the will of the people when dynasties rule. It's very interesting. I've just written a piece, which I hope will appear soon, where I said that India is now becoming what Pakistan was becoming in 1980s. Uh, but India got rid of the Nehru dynasty and it brought in a populist ruler who is almost becoming authoritarian and is dividing the country on the basis of religion and language. Uh, Whereas Pakistan has gone the other way, has revived the dynasties. And dynasties are never good in the long run for any country. You just have to look around in Central Asia, in Africa, anywhere in the Middle East. Um, they put a lid on the ability of the people to do things and say things, and they prevent the government from being able to accept criticism and suggestions with confidence. So everything becomes an anti state action. I think the use of the anti terrorism courts for political purposes is a serious mistake, which is damaging Pakistan's judicial system and political system both. So that would be the general comment that I would make. So the scenario would be that if the two parties that are now sort of the twiddle-dee and twiddle-dum of Pakistani politics um, fail to deliver, then the military will have to look elsewhere or step into the breach itself. And that'll be a step backwards.
And on that note, we will conclude our discussion. Shuja Nawaz, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. It's good to speak with you.